Saturday night.
Hey guys, it's Brad with College SportsCast, and we are presented by the Fanboys. All right, guys, we are back. I think I come back pretty quick that time.
You did. That's because there's not another person on here.
Well, and I'm in a different spot too, so
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm in a little different spot than I normally am as well. So
Yeah, there's no frozen treats behind you, so we can't have frozen
right,
bread.
right. Yeah, this is
That's it.
true.
There you go. So no
Yeah,
frozen treats, no frozen bread.
yeah, this is true.
Mm-mm.
So we
Imagine.
are on a little bit later than normal. So I have been to Louisville at Prep Red Zone Kentucky football camp this morning and this afternoon. Started out horrible. It was raining and cold and windy, and it was a an adventure. At least let's put it that way today. But I've been covering high school recruits from 2023 to 2026. Most of them were Kentucky guys in the state of Kentucky. I think there was one or two out of state guys that were there, but most of them were Kentucky guys. And I will be doing a bunch of coverage. I've got a bunch of clips and stuff to post, and I'll be doing that. That's the reason why we are on a little bit later today. So, what'd you do since you had an extra hour today, John?
Sat around waiting on you.
Well, we're supposed to have a guest, and I am messaging him. I actually was on my way back from Louisville and had to stop. That's the reason why I'm in a different location. Had to stop because I didn't make it all the way back, and was like, "Hey, I need to come over and do my podcast real quick." So that's why I'm sitting in a different spot, and I ain't had time. So I messaged the guy that we're supposed to have on. Rob Staton is supposed to be on with us, and I am hoping that I will get him on while we're doing this. He is a Seattle Seahawks NFL draft insider, and he is supposed to be on with us today. I had messaged him 2 or 3 days ago, and he said yes. But I haven't had a whole lot of time to message him today because I've been on the road and covering the camp that I was at.
Hold on just a second.
All right, we got some dogs there in the background. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I heard them, the woof woofing. But anyway, so I'm hoping that we'll get Rob Staton on with us. So I'm kind of doing this at the last minute, it seems like today, but we're on with you guys, and welcome to College SportsCast. We are sponsored by Bluegrass Brads. Many of you might know that that is my business, and we are sponsoring now College SportsCast. We are also sponsoring the Fanboys and Greenville Sports Media as well. And that's who I went today to represent at Prep Red Zone Kentucky. Went to Louisville, Kentucky at St. Xavier High School and been there covering them. And about 75 kids were there at the camp today. And like I said, one or two of them were out of state kids, Indiana kids, I believe. And so we had fun doing that, but we're trying to rush back to get our show here And like I said, hopefully we'll have the NFL Draft Insider on with us here shortly. If we don't, we will make a show out of this one way or another, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Hey, how's your mom's basement?
Yeah, that's where I stopped. Where's my mom's? She lives about 45, 50 minutes before, coming back before I do. And she was the one place that I knew that I could be, hey, Mom, I need to come over and do my podcast.
So weird.
So I was in a hurry and I didn't quite make it. I told John, that's the reason why he knew where I was. I told John that might be where I have to stop to do the podcast.
Yep.
Hey, it didn't lag. Maybe
Maybe you have to go drive 45 minutes from where you live to go do your podcast. So we have no lag,
Right.
bread.
Yeah. Maybe that's what I need to do from now on. I'm not real sure.
Frozen bread only happens in his frozen treats shop. So
Yeah,
therefore,
yeah.
Yeah.
This is something that makes sense, actually. I do frozen treats and,
trees yourself.
And I don't really understand. The internet that I pay for is way faster than the internet that my mom pays for, just to be honest. So I don't know. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yep. So while we're not talking about the NFL draft at the moment, I was going to go through a few scores that were happening today for baseball.
Okay.
For college baseball. So when we go through currently in the top of the eighth inning, Texas leads Baylor 6-8. Going through just college itself, I'll eventually hit all the SEC ones. UNC Wilmington leads TCU 12-5 in the top of the eighth. That is, I would like to see what happened the rest of that series right there, but I bet TCU probably won the first two, but I'd have to take a look at it. Florida State, NC State tied at 3 in the bottom of the eighth inning. K-State, Kansas, it's 18-10 in the top of the sixth. Holy cow. Not a lot of pitching in that game. There's not really ever pitching on Sundays unless you're Florida and you have Caglione. But, not many teams have had a Sunday starter that is just lights out. And you don't really ever see it either. You normally see your Friday night guy, and the good teams have a Friday and a Saturday. The great teams have a Sunday guy as well. And you just don't see – that's where you know the difference between the good and the greats is if you got a Sunday guy. Let's see. Arkansas leads Tennessee 6-2 in the bottom of the fifth. Michigan beat Rutgers 13-8. Maryland lost to Ohio State 13-8. Va-Tech beat Georgia Tech 9-2. Louisville in Louisville, so you could have had a shot at seeing this. Louisville beat Wake Forest 7-2. That's a top 10 matchup right there. Number 10 Louisville beat number 2 Wake Forest 7-2. Florida took the series from Georgia 11-6 in the rubber game here. Virginia beats Pitt 8-5. East Carolina beats Cincinnati 13-3. Duke beats Boston College, number 11 Boston College 6-2. Campbell beat Longwood 16-5. West Virginia takes out number 18 Oklahoma State 11-6. Looks like we actually had a doubleheader today with Michigan and Rutgers. Rutgers took game 1 6-3. Clemson beats Notre Dame 6-4. Nebraska beats up on Northwestern 18-5. Now here we get some SEC scores. Vanderbilt beats South Carolina, and I think takes the series. This is number 4 Vanderbilt beating number 6 South Carolina 6-4. Let's see. Mississippi State takes the series from Ole Miss with a 5-3 victory today. Alabama takes the series from Auburn with a 6-1 victory today. And that is all the scores that I currently have. Every other one, they're probably playing, but there's no scores listed here. So
I know that Kentucky and LSU played this weekend in baseball.
That's right. Kentucky and LSU was a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series.
Right.
It looks like you told me that I know Thursday Kentucky came back and won that game, right? And that the game that they won?
Right. They won Friday night. They won Friday night.
It was Friday.
Yeah.
So Thursday, Paul Skeens and LSU took care of Kentucky. Friday, Kentucky came back and won that one. That one was like a 13-11 or something like that?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
Yeah, I can actually pull that up. Really
and then
quick.
Yesterday, Kentucky actually had a lead late, and then
13-10. That's what it was, 13-10.
Yeah.
Yep.
And LSU pulled it out late and won 7-6 in the rubber match.
There you go.
Yeah.
So while Kentucky did lose the series, they did take one game, and their RPI undoubtedly went up because they played the number 1 team in the country.
Right.
So
and hung with them and had a real shot, to win the series late.
Right.
But,
and I mean, even what was Thursday's game? Oh, it was 16-6. Never mind.
Yes, they 10
lost that one
on Thursday.
Yeah, in 8 innings. Yeah, It looked like I think I remember watching this one. It was a lot of late offense by LSU pulled away.
Yeah, I think so.
But Missouri and Texas A&M was also a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, and so was Miami and North Carolina. So in case you didn't hear any of those scores today, they were Thursday, Friday, Saturday series that did not play yesterday or did not play today. So these were today's scores, not over the whole weekend or whatever. So those were some weekend series that started on Thursday. It did not have a Sunday game. We also had the USFL start yesterday.
Oh, did it start yesterday? Right. I have had one of the busiest weekends of my life, to be quite honest with you. And I have not paid attention. Now, I did check in on the scores of the Kentucky LSU games over the weekend, real quick, but I really haven't paid a whole lot of attention to much.
So now we have 2 professional spring leagues that are going on at the same time. We have the XFL and the USFL.
XFL's got to be getting close to being done.
It's got to be on it. It's got to be on its way out right now because they started so early. And the USFL will go until mid-June?
Yeah, I think it's something like that, yeah.
I think they play
and
8
I think
or 10
the
games
XFL playoffs are pretty soon.
Right, they should be. And then, like I said, you got the USFL, the defending champions Birmingham Stallions did win yesterday. I believe it was 27-10. So and that one was at home.
I know AJ McCarron's been doing. I think it's McCarron, isn't it? Who's there?
Yep. No, McCarron, I believe, is in the XFL.
Yeah.
I think he's in the XFL.
Yeah, he's the one he's been doing really well down there.
Right, but Birmingham Stallions are the USFL. They are the other league.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to think of all there are a lot of different players that were that I do remember college-wise as far as in the USFL, like with Birmingham, you've got Scooby Wright, who was out of, I believe, Arizona. They've also got an Alabama running back. He's the one that broke his leg either in the championship game against Clemson. And why I'm going blank on him. Anyway, he was out against Clemson. Didn't get. I think he hurt his leg early in the game, and ended up not being able to play the rest of the game. And of course, it's one of those what if moments. Hey, if he doesn't get hurt, Clemson doesn't win the game, because I think that's also the game that Alabama blames Clemson for running the pick play with Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
And so I think that's 2018. So it was trying to remember. I will have his name in just a second, but I have just drawn a blank. And I know a lot of the other fanboys that are in this that usually watch our broadcast on YouTube are paying attention to Braves baseball, and the Braves swept the Kansas City Chiefs, or the Kansas City Royals today. They won 5-4 today and took the whole and swept the series this weekend. So, and I believe there are some other things. Let's see who else we have here. The Minnesota Twins called up a former Auburn baseball player this past week, Edouard Julien, and in his first game, the Twins end up batting around in the first inning, and he went 2 for 2 in the first inning, including a bomb.
Yeah.
Just hadn't done a whole lot since, but he went 2 for 2 in the first inning of that first game. I think he ended up going 2 for 5 in the game. So obviously he went 2 or 3 for 5 in the game. So I believe it's 3 for 5 in the game, and he's hadn't had a whole lot of hits since that game.
Since then, yeah.
Because I think he was at one point he had gotten under. He was batting under 200. So, which means,
yeah, that's not great.
In the next 5-6 at bats, he was over. So,
right.
Yep. But yep.
So, to kind of give you guys an update on things with us, College SportsCast is on WSBN TV now. If you download Boxcast app, you can find us on Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire Stick, and we are on channel 30 on WSBN TV. So we would appreciate you guys joining us for all of that. It should be airing right now. Rob is getting with me, so I'm trying to message him real quick.
Things that are happening live on the air.
Yeah, I'm trying to message him real quick. So he was just reading my messages and getting back with me. So I was trying to respond to him real quick. But anyways, yes, things that happen sometimes live. Like I said, we're kind of throwing this show together. I've been gone and been busy with work the last 2 days, doing events with that. And then I did the media event today in Louisville, and just really haven't had a lot of time. But Rob is possibly going to join us here in a minute. He just asked me if we were still on and could come on, and I said yes. So hopefully we'll have Rob Staton on with us here in just a few minutes. As I was saying, you can catch us on WSBN TV channel 30. You do need to download that Boxcast app to be able to watch us.
I did that. I put it on the TV upstairs.
Did you? Cool.
Yeah.
And it works, right?
It does. We're there.
But you have to download the Boxcast app.
Yes, you can't find us on Apple TV unless you do the Boxcast.
Right.
But you can find us on WSBN TV Channel 30, but you have to get through the BoxCast. And then, of course, we're on YouTube and other places as well.
And we are also on with the Fresh channel, the Real Fresh channel as well. We are featured on Sunday evenings. This show, which is usually an hour before, is featured on Sunday evenings on the Real Fresh channel. And you can catch us there as well. And it looks like Rob is coming on with us.
So, live TV right now.
Yeah, live as we speak right now. Looks like I'm going to try to get Rob pulled up here for us.
He's right here. I found him.
There he is. Hey, Rob, how are you today?
Hey guys, sorry I'm late. I've really got tied up with something, so my apologies. I'm rather late.
So I was late coming in too. This has been I've had a really busy 3 days, and that's the reason why I pushed it back an hour to start with. So I just appreciate you coming on with us as well. So this is Rob Staton. Am I pronouncing it right?
Staton, but it's fine. Everybody says
Staton,
so it's fine.
Okay, Staton. I'm sorry, Rob Staton. And you are a Seattle Seahawks NBA draft insider. Is that correct?
The NFL, yes. But I hope just
yes, NFL. So I write for the.
Did I say
about the Seahawks?
What I say? NBA.
Yes. I mean that's a sore subject in Seattle. So
no, NFL is what I meant.
Oh,
yeah.
God. Get it right, Brad.
Yeah, NBA would be a sore subject in Seattle. Yeah,
super Sonics.
Yeah, it definitely would. I actually went when I used to live in Vancouver. Just before I moved back to the UK, I went to watch the Sonics play, and Kevin Durant was with the Sonics at the time. So yeah, ever since then, it's kind of. I remember it cost me $10 to get in, which was about £5 English. So that was pretty amazing. To go and watch the that's how desperate they were for people to go watch the Sonics at the time.
Wow,
really? That's crazy. I mean, the Sonics back in the day with Kemp and Gary Payton and all them, they had some good teams.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in Seattle who are hoping they're going to be back there soon. So fingers crossed for that.
All right, so you are an NFL Seahawks draft insider, and that's the reason why I wanted to have you on the show. The Seahawks have the 5th selection in the upcoming NFL draft, and I know that they are kind of doing their due diligence and doing their rounds with basically the top 5, 6, 7 picks of the draft. And I know that head coach Pete Carroll has been at some of the workouts and stuff like that. And I just kind of wanted to go through with you and go through some of the top 5, 6, 7 guys here and kind of let you give us some inside info on them. So is that cool with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go for it.
All right. That's kind of where I thought we would start. I guess we'll start with Bryce Young from Alabama. And, he's one of the top 4, I will say, probably are mostly quarterbacks. There is a couple of defenders, but we'll start talking with the quarterbacks, and we'll start with Bryce Young. He had a workout. I believe his workout was first, or maybe it was Stroud. But I think Bryce Young's was first. Was his workout first?
No, so Stroud went first. Then the Alabama one was, I think, the day after, and then Will Levis it was incredible that they were like 3 days in a row. Will Levis was after that, and then a week later, Anthony Richardson had his.
Okay, well, so Bryce was second in the workout order, where do you think his workout ranked as far as I guess the QB workouts, and give us a little insider information on Bryce Young?
I thought Bryce Young's pro day was an exercise in getting it out of the way. I thought that the other 3 quarterbacks, they wanted to show off. They used their pro days to say, look at me. look at the physical tools that I've got. CJ Stroud, for example, went out there and it was real up tempo. He just basically started firing shots downfield, which is, typically when you see a pro day, there's a lot of shorter stuff. It's slow. It takes forever to get going. At the end, you see some deeper shots, and that's what Bryce Young's pro day was like. It was much slower in tempo. It wasn't a very exciting workout, I thought. I didn't glean anything from it. And I think throughout this whole process with Bryce Young, he's just wanted to get everything out of the way. His combine he didn't do anything at the combine. And the whole point of his combine, as far as he was concerned, was to drink enough water and eat enough pasta and cheeseburgers the night before the combine so that he could be above 200 pounds when he got on those weighing scales. And then he probably just went for the biggest piss after that and got rid of all the jugs of water that he'd been drinking in the build-up to that combine. And then he did absolutely nothing at the combine and probably went back and thought, right, I need to get my diet back in order now because I've been just doing ridiculous things to be over 200 pounds. He didn't allow anybody to weigh him again at the pro day. And then the pro day with it, he ain't going to match up with Anthony Richardson and Will Levis and CJ Stroud and beat them in a pro day competition. He knows what he is. I suspect when you listen to the insiders, Schefters and people like that, Chris Mortensen, they've been saying that he's going to go first overall. I suspect he probably knew that as well. So this whole pre-draft process of Bryce Young has just been get it out the way, get it done, get to Carolina, give me a playbook, let's get on with it.
So with that, you saying, that he's likely to still go number one, his size was, I think he was measured at 5'10" at the combine.
Yeah, the size is a problem for him because there just hasn't been anybody like him before. People will compare him to Drew Brees and Russell Wilson and people like that. People forget that Russell Wilson was pretty thick. He was well built and went to great lengths early in his career to slide properly, to learn how to avoid being hit all of the time. And he still took a beating, but he basically structured his career almost to put himself in survival mode. Drew Brees was a thicker player. Kyler Murray is a thicker player. Bryce Young's very slight. And, it looks as if the Panthers are going to take him overall, and they'll have just had to qualify in their own minds. Look, his processing's good. He's the kind of guy that he will turn his hand to any sport and be the best at it. I bet he's a brilliant golfer. I bet he's pretty much good at everything, and he's that type of natural talent. He's very creative, but they're going to have to be ready because, if he gets hit and he lands on his shoulder, which is what happened in the college football season, if he is taking a beating behind a bad offensive line, it's going to be you worry for him. You worry that he's going to get injured because he doesn't naturally have a 210-pound frame that's going to take being planted in the ground by a 270-pound defensive lineman.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he is what he is, and that's what everybody was like. That I mean, that's what he knows who he is. Everybody has seen what he can do, based on the season. So that's why, obviously, he didn't do a whole lot extra. Whereas, CJ Stroud and Anthony Richardson, they're trying to impress because, look, Stroud had a really good season. Everybody could tell what he could do, and he was trying to secure himself as the number one overall. Richardson played with a team that was very mediocre and has a hand cannon for an arm, but he's got to be able to show that he can be very accurate with that arm, as opposed to Bryce Young just sits there and just throws darts like that.
It does. Bryce Young's got. Listen, Bryce Young's a very talented player. Yeah. There are some things. I do feel a little bit like as the process has gone on, narratives have been formed and they never get shifted off. And I've watched every game that the top four. I've watched most of Hendon Hooker's games, but I've watched all of the top four. I've watched every game they played in college.
Right.
And with Bryce Young, there's so much. You just have to put the Kansas State game on in the bowl game. Some of the stuff he's throwing downfield. He's throwing it on a dime right to the corner of the end zone from 40 yards. And you just think, wow, that's amazing. The accuracy, the flight on the football, everything about that's really good. When you watch the Texas game, Alabama were awful in that game. They should have lost to Texas. And Bryce Young was bad for 3 quarters, but then in the 4th quarter, he found a way to win the game. And that's what you want. That's what Russell Wilson did for 10 years in Seattle. That is what the top players do. They don't have to have 500 yards every game. It's just that when it matters, it gets that 4th quarter. They've got the talent and the balls to get you out of a hole and say, I'm going to win this game for his guys. There was one throw that he completed to Jahmyr Gibbs in the red zone in that game, which is like he's scrambling out the pocket. He's off balance. He resets. I don't know. I've watched that play about 100 times. I don't know how he reset his feet and then throws with accuracy to Jahmyr Gibbs, who's made a great catch in the end zone. It's a spectacular play. And stuff like that is just wow moments. But there are other things. He bails in the pocket too much, and that's got to be because of the height. He bails in the pocket. He threw a couple of really ugly interceptions in the season. Just sort of bailing the pocket unnecessarily. There was no pressure. Gets out, throws it downfield into, just basically lobs it up there. And you're thinking, you can't do that. Your coaches are not going to allow you to do that in the NFL. Those are the kind of little things that doesn't get talked about enough. And that with the injury side of it, which you're always going to have to be worried about with a 190-pound quarterback, is because of the height. If he gets drafted by the Panthers, he's going to play Calais Campbell twice for the Falcons, who's 6'8". How is he going to be able to see over the middle with that big, lump, just right in front of him?
Yeah, the height is an issue for sure. I think that 5'10" is an issue for any quarterback, but NFL quarterbacks, you just don't see much under 6 foot. So I think that's going to be an issue for them. For Bryce
you don't really see a whole lot. You don't really see a whole lot of NFL quarterbacks that are close to 6 feet. There's a couple of them that are under, and a few of them that are 6'1", but most of them are a lot taller than that.
Right, and he measured 5'10" at the NFL Combine. So that's an issue, I think. But so
it is an issue because you just look at Josh Allen. He can stand in the pocket, you can hit Josh Allen, and he still gets the ball out. Anthony Richardson, there's actually plays on tape, and you can go watch this from last year, where there's like a defender hanging off one of his legs. And, typically, if that's Bryce Young, he's down on the floor and he's maybe getting crumpled up. Anthony Richardson's got a defender hanging off his leg, and he stands in the pocket and still manages to, he's not going down, he stands there and throws the ball and actually makes a completion with the defender hanging off him. So that's the difference. Size does matter in these instances. Now, the thing that Young is, he's very elusive, very creative, and he can get out of the pocket and make plays. That you have to have that in the modern NFL. It's just that some teams, would look at a bigger stature quarterback and think, we just want someone who can stand tall in the pocket and complete a 5-yard pass without having to scramble. And there are going to be some occasions where you question whether Bryce Young was going to be able to do that. He's going to go first overall, though. Very talented player. And, I'm very excited to see how he does in Carolina.
All right. So we'll move on to C.J. Stroud, who, from all I have seen, most people said that his workout, his pro day, was probably the best.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. So up-tempo. The first thing he did in the pro day was he basically, what you generally have is there'll be a snap, the quarterback will kind of pretend to drop 5 steps or whatever, and then throw a short pass. And then there'll be a bit of mucking about, and then they'll get back in position, and then they'll do another throw at their own leisure. And it's very laid back. And what CJ Stroud did is he just got up there. It was snap, 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 snap. And he was just like, it was like a production line. It was just one throw, very quick.
Yeah.
They've got multiple receivers running, the same route down the sideline. Then it was down to the other side. Then it was a deep throw. It was so quick, so dynamic. It was a wonderfully scripted pro day, and it was exciting to watch. You didn't feel bored. Often they are quite boring events sometimes, pro days, but it was so quick and up tempo. It was great. Now, there were some throws where he was just a fraction off, and you could see in his body language afterwards that he was frustrated on a couple of throws, but then he can do it all. He can throw with such wonderful touch, like the deeper throws. You see a lot of quarterbacks just arm the ball out there. I want to show that I can throw it 60 yards. So I'm just going to arm it out there as hard as I can, get this down to a spot and hope that the receiver's going to run under it. With CJ Stroud, he's got the loft perfectly right. You know, everyone used to come about the Russell Wilson with the moon ball. You know, CJ Stroud's got that down to a T. You know, and he throws with wonderful touch downfield to all areas of the field. In fact, he can throw the shorter passes with accuracy and timing. He can launch the ball downfield. He can throw on the run, throw into his left. You know, most quarterbacks have a bit of an issue with that when they're sort of moving to the left, and he will have a bit of an issue with that as well. But apart from that, you know, just a very naturally talented player. I've not, you know, I've written the blog since 2008. I've not seen a quarterback throw a better touch than CJ Stroud since then.
That's a pretty bold statement from you, actually, I would say, because you have been doing this for a long time. So, and doing.
I mean, there's very accurate quarterbacks out there. You know, Joe Burrow was incredibly accurate, but in terms of that throwing with touch and the velocity to go with the touch as well, there's so many. You can see it. Like, it helps when you've got Marvin Harrison and you know that junior, and he's going to be in the right spot at the right time. But you know, he can throw it far downfield, like it's a handoff 40 yards downfield. So it's good. I mean, the thing with Stroud though is, and I wrote a lot about this during the season, and you can't get away from this, is that right up until that Georgia game at the end of the year, you're watching him and he's looking at the sideline and someone's holding a piece of card up with a funny picture on it, and that tells him what the read is, and then he's going and throwing it. And you know, they all play. A lot of the quarterbacks play in this system. So Hendon Hooker plays in something very similar. Michael Penix Jr. at Washington plays in a similar scheme where they're basically told this is what the coverage is, this is what you need to do. And they all threw an identical interception during the season because defenses cotton onto it and they say, we know what this formation, we anticipate it. And so many of the throws that Stroud, Penix Jr. and Hooker do is to look off the safety to the right, come back and throw across the middle almost blind. And they all threw the same pick. There was a triangle of defenders all waiting in the same area. You've seen all three quarterbacks throw exactly the same interception because the defense has just judged it. And
they're waiting on it.
Yeah, he's not reading the defense. He's being told what to do. And if you recognize the card or you see the card or you recognize the tendencies that they're using because you're 10 games into a season, then you can anticipate that. And what Stroud's going to have to do is he's going to have to come into the league and he's going to have to read a defense. And he needs a year. And he needs time to learn that. And that's going to be tricky for him. Now, the good thing is against Georgia, it was like, Stroud, you are going to have to get out there and improvise because you're playing the best.
And he looked way better against Georgia as well.
Incredible. Like, it was Mahomes-esque at times. The way he scrambled and threw on the run was Mahomes-esque, but that was really the only game of evidence you've got for that. I tend to be more positive about him, though. If he can do that against Georgia, he can do it in the NFL. So I think he just needs time and a good quarterback coach and a good offensive scheme, and he's got all the tools that you need.
Right. I agree with all of that, and I know that you're, right there and see and hear all this stuff and write about it, and that's the reason why we wanted to have you on the show. So kind of get a little bit of insider information. So we'll go to Will Levis and his workout, his pro day. I thought that Jordan Palmer, which is his quarterback coach, I thought he put together a good script for him on his pro day as well. And what did you think about Will Levis's pro day?
I completely agree with you. It was the first thing I wrote when I did my write-up on Will Levis was on his pro day was that Jordan Palmer produced a fantastic session, and it was the most. I got the most out of that session because he was doing a lot of the things that Levis is going to have to do. He's going to come into an offense which is going to have a lot of play action, which is going to have a lot of bootlegs. It's going to get him on the move, throw it on the run, and they did all sorts of stuff like that. And that's what teams needed to see. So I think Jordan Palmer got it absolutely spot on with the way that he structured that. I'm baffled by the way that Levis has been reported for the last few months. I don't know whether it's just that the media likes to latch on to somebody and knock and criticize them. We've got to have a punching bag in this draft, and we've decided it's going to be Will Levis. I don't really get it. There's been no perspective with people can sit there. We can all sit here and go, CJ Stroud looks amazing. Yeah, he gets to throw to Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, the other first round picks that they've got. They might have 2 first round offensive tackles drafted in this draft. He had 2 first round receivers go in the top 15 last year. He's got running backs who are 5-star recruits. defensive players who are supporting him who are 5-star recruits. How on earth is that the same as playing for Kentucky in the SEC when you've lost 3 offensive linemen to the NFL, you're running back suspended for the first 4 games. Wan'Dale Robinson's gone to the New York Giants in round 2, and you've basically got a bunch of guys you transferred in or who are like freshmen and younger guys replacing him.
Yeah,
he had absolutely nothing in terms of a way of a supporting cast. He was getting the average number of sacks that Kentucky gave up last year were 3.5. And, guys like Stroud and Penix Jr. and people like that were being sacked less than 1 sack a game. There's like 4 times as many sacks per game than those guys. And people are going, yeah, but he has interceptions and he didn't play very well. I'm thinking, well, yeah, put CJ Stroud in behind center at Kentucky and let's see how he gets on. This is just, put Levis give Levis Marvin Harrison Jr. and Paris Johnson Jr. and Dawan Jones and let's go. Let's see how he gets on as well. So you've got to be careful with the way that you assess these players and understand their situations. I thought when he was playing for Liam Cohen in 2021 that Levis was fantastic, and that's the system that he needs to play in, that Rams system, which is used by a lot of teams now. And I think if he gets in that scheme, in that system, I think he's going to be fine. He's got a fantastic arm. I've interviewed Will Levis. I've spoken to people at Kentucky about Will Levis, and I interviewed Chris Rodriguez last week, who was the running back at Kentucky, and they just speak in the most glowing terms of him and have explained what a fantastic leader he is, what a fantastic guy he is. He has everything that you want in terms of the character, in terms of the willingness to learn. He loves football. He's going to work at it every single day. He's abundantly aware that he has footwork things. And look, one of the things he's admitted to is that he was throwing from his he's throwing from his upper body rather than his hips. And he knows he's going to make that technical tweak, but he's admitting it, and he's going to go and work on that as soon as he gets into the pros as a full-time job. And I don't think there's any way whatsoever that he gets past the 4th overall pick. I think the Colts are going to take him if somebody doesn't trade up to number 3. I think the media have done a bad job covering Will Levis. He's not going to be for every team. I get that. I'm not saying that every team loves him, but enough teams will love him for him to go very early.
Would you say that Will Levis is closer to what Josh Allen was coming out of college?
I think Josh Allen is probably closer to Anthony Richardson in terms of just the thing with Josh Allen was that you looked at him and you thought, he looks like he's been made in a factory. Like he's tall, he can run, he's got enormous hands. And with Levis, I don't quite see that. I think Levis is probably closer aligned to Justin Herbert. I think that he's not quite he did some of those Allen runs in 2021 where he ran over people and stuff like that. I don't think he's going to do that in the NFL. I don't think he's quite as mobile, and I do think he has got too big. I think that he loves the gym, and I think he could probably knock that on the head by 15% and not lift as much, and be a bit more flexible and a bit more nimble than getting jacked up like he is. But apart from that, I think he's probably going to be more of a Herbert type than a Josh Allen. I think Anthony Richardson's and Josh Allen are a very good comparison. And with Richardson, it's just whether or not he's going to get the opportunity to work with a coach as good as Brian Daboll to really flesh out that talent that he has.
Right.
Well, I mean, we can move on to Anthony Richardson and his pro day, and you can give us kind of an update on that as well.
So I thought Anthony Richardson's pro day was very different to the others because he looked very relaxed. He was. There was nothing serious about that pro day. He was sort of laughing and joking. He was going through the motions a little bit on that, but I didn't care. I saw some people be quite critical of that. I don't think it really matters. I thought he looked like he was having fun. Levis was all business. Stroud was like, let's get after this. It was like, nice go time. And Anthony Richardson was more having fun, and he was very relaxed. But he showed off the physical tools that he's got. I mean, he has got this. I think it's a unique ability to just look like I'm just going to throw something 10 yards and it's gone 60. Like his release, it just flies off his hand. I've spoken to several people about this. I've spoken to Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl. I've spoken to Jake Heaps, who is Russell Wilson's quarterback coach. I've spoken to other people, some of them off the record, and they, people who were at the Banning Passing Academy last year. and Richardson was there, and Levis was there, and I think Bryce Young was there. Stroud wasn't there. Basically, all of the big name quarterbacks were there, and they basically said that Richardson and Levis were they were clearly the most. They were just physically unbelievable, and the word that was used to describe Richardson was legendary in terms of the physical qualities. Like the talent is unbelievable. Now I get it. I keep hearing the people saying, the completion percentage is low, and that's a thing. It's a thing that you have to accept, and it will put a lot of people off. What I would say though is this is a guy who played 1 year of college football, and you can hold that against him if you want, or you can make a proper assessment, or I don't think you can say I'm not going to draft somebody because he only played 1 year of college football. And if he'd have played 3 years of college football, I think the progression would have been so good that he would have been the number 1 overall pick one day. Here's the thing we've got to remember here: in his last 6 games, he had 16 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, and that was against Georgia and Texas A&M, and I'm trying to think of the teams he played. Florida State.
Right.
Real good teams, and
yeah,
by the end of the year he was scoring a bunch of touchdowns and not throwing any picks. And then when he sat out of the bowl game, what happened? Florida lost 30 points to 3 against Oregon State.
Right.
So
yeah, Oregon State.
He was a one-man team, and look, he's not ready to start. He might not be ready to start next year either. But if you can get him in, teach him how to be a pro, let him learn the offense. I mean, the sky's the limit. He could be on Madden covers. He could be MVP.
So you say he's not ready to start. Is there a possibility that a top 5 pick in the NFL draft is not going to start?
Oh, Patrick Mahomes sat a year, and that should be a lesson to us all. I think there's this problem in the league that's come in that that rookies have to start immediately.
I mean, Aaron Rodgers set 4. He was a first round pick.
Now, what should teams be thinking when you're drafting a quarterback? In my opinion, you should be thinking, what do we do to give this guy the best possible chance to be a 10 to 15 year starter? Not, we need to sell some jerseys. He needs to get out there week 1. Look at the Jets with Zach Wilson. They throw him out there when he's not ready.
Right.
He's bombed. 2 years later, they're going to replace him with Aaron Rodgers. His career might be over.
Right.
Patrick Mahomes gets to sit for a year. There are some quarterbacks like Joe Burrow who, they look ready to start. But sometimes you've just got to say, look, this is a long-term investment. I get that some GMs make picks because they're trying to save their jobs, and then these guys end up starting. But you can't, that's on the owner. You should be empowering your GM and your coach to say, okay, we've decided to take a quarterback. Now you're going to get the time to properly develop. Don't feel the pressure to play this guy straight away. And that's how it should be. And if it takes Anthony Richardson 2 years, if he's starting when he's 23 years old, having had a couple of years to learn the offense and learn how to be a pro, possibly working underneath, I don't know, a Geno Smith or a Jared Goff or somebody like that, to learn the ropes, I think you could end up with the best player in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It's a question because a lot of people in their head think that a top 5, top 10 pick, especially a QB, has to start right away. And I don't agree with.
I totally understand what you're saying. But here's the thing, right? This is something that I've been talking about quite a lot recently. Is people couch these quarterbacks as they're not ready, they need time, you can't draft somebody early. I'll tell you now, Jalen Carter isn't going to be ready to play as a rookie. Jalen Carter he's got massive conditioning issues. He has terrible practice habits. He picks and chooses when he wants to practice and when he wants to lift and stuff like that. You watch that Ohio State game. Does anybody think watching Jalen Carter in that game when he's gassed, looks like he's going to collapse on the field because he's so tired? Does anybody think he's ready to play 17 games of NFL football this year? I mean, it might take him a full year, maybe 2 years, to get his conditioning to a level where he can play 17 games. I think people talking about like he's going to be Aaron Donald as a rookie. I mean, look, Quinnen Williams took him 3 years. Like, there's plenty of players in here that you invest in, and they need time. They need time to learn what it's like to be an NFL player, to either master their their conditioning or their physicality or their scheme or whatever it is, whether you're a quarterback or a defensive lineman or a cornerback, whatever it is, a lot of these guys need time. And I don't see any problem with drafting somebody in the top 5 and developing that player so they can be great. And Jalen Carter is going to need that just as much as someone like Anthony Richardson. So I think that's something that's a perspective that isn't often acknowledged.
Yeah, I mean, it's just something I wanted to ask you about while we had you on. So we have one of the 4 quarterbacks that everybody thinks is going to be in the top. So I guess my question to you, I mean, you kind of already said where you think Bryce Young is going to go. What do you think the order of those 4 quarterbacks will go? And do you think they all go before Seattle picks at 5?
I don't think they'll all be off the board by 5. Obviously Young 1. By all of the noise is that the Houston Texans are gonna take a defender at number 2. I spoke to somebody who's legit within the NFL about a month ago, and I'm going to speak to them again this week. And they said to me that Will Anderson is hands down the top, the first defender taken in this draft. So even though there's a bit of buzz about Tyree Wilson, I think that Will Anderson, if the Texans go defense number 2, it'll be Will Anderson. Then at number 3, it's look, does a team come up for CJ Stroud? And I just don't know. I mean, like if the Texans pass on him, is anybody going to move up? I did a mock draft earlier and had Washington move up because I think they're sort of hiding in the tall grass a little bit in terms of Sam Howell's the quarterback and stuff like that. It's like, really? You brought Eric Bieniemy over to coach Sam Howell, 5th round pick or whatever he was. They've not done anything. They've stayed away from the Lamar Jackson stuff. I just wonder whether they're going to make a move and it's going to surprise everybody on draft day. But it's not going to be that. It shouldn't be that surprising. So it's maybe them. And if they come up to number 3, I think Stroud would be a perfect person to pair with Eric Bieniemy and the offense he's going to run. So that's a possibility. But if the Cardinals can't trade down, they'll take a defender. I think Levis is going to go to the Colts. I think that'll happen whatever happens. I think Levis is going to go to the Colts. And then with Seattle, if I had to put money on it, I would say Will Anderson's going to be their top choice. If he's not there, and Anthony Richardson is, I think there's a very good chance they take him. I know there's people out there who think they're going to take defense whatever happens, and that could bring Tyree Wilson or Devin Witherspoon into. I don't think the Seahawks are going to take Jalen Carter. So, and I think they'll like CJ Stroud, but if Stroud gets to 5 and the Colts and the Texans pass, what does that say? So I don't know. I think there's a chance that at least one quarterback will be there, and the
so
more the closer we get, maybe 2.
So you think if Stroud is still on the board, the Colts are going to take Levis over Stroud?
Yes.
Okay, that's kind of a bold statement.
I think they will, because
but you have the insider info, so yeah,
that's my opinion. I think that the thing with the Colts is they need someone to start now. They need someone who can play week 1.
Right.
They need someone who can go out there and play a football game this season, and that ain't Stroud, and that ain't Anthony Richardson.
Levis probably can. Yeah.
You're
right on that.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
That's it. And also, he's a Chris Ballard guy. He's exactly the kind of guy that Chris Ballard goes for. The character, the size, he screams Chris Ballard to me. So I also I don't I know they kind of flirted with moving up to number 1, but there was no real big effort there, was there? And they've not really shown any interest in moving up to 3. I think if they wanted CJ Stroud or somebody like that, they'd have made a push. I think they've been very comfortable with Levis from day 1, and I think they will take him, whatever, unless somebody trades up for him.
Well, so you're talking about trading up to that 3 spot. Does the Tennessee Titans maybe make a run to do that at the number 3 spot?
Could see that. Could definitely see that. They took a swing on Malik Willis. I was not a Willis fan a year ago, and when they're bringing in a guy off his couch last year to play instead of Malik Willis, it kind of says where they are with him. I could see them moving up. They're a franchise that needs some juice. It seems to have just gone a bit stale since the AJ Brown thing and firing the GM. They need something, and listen, Anthony Richardson's a superstar name, prospect. He's a fit for them. I could definitely see them bringing him. He could sit behind Ryan Tannehill until he's ready to take over. It's a great match. So I could, they've paid Jeffrey Simmons. They've got some pieces elsewhere. I could definitely see them moving up for Anthony Richardson or even CJ Stroud, because again, that's a good place with Tannehill. This is the thing where a team like Tennessee, and it's the same for the Raiders, for the Seahawks, for the Lions, they've got an experienced starter who can play this year, and they can sit the guy. So I could imagine any of those teams thinking we're going to take a quarterback.
All right, yeah, I mean that's one of the teams that I thought might have a shot at moving up to that 3 spot would be the Tennessee Titans.
There's one other thought on Tennessee, by the way. I did this in my mock draft earlier. Was I wonder if they'll take an offensive lineman at number 11 and then trade right into the back of round 1 and take Hendon Hooker, because Hendon Hooker, he's a local hero.
Right.
He is going to miss this year probably because of the injury, or if he's ready, he's not going to be 100%. Ideal to let him sit behind Ryan Tannehill for a year, and they'll love that in Tennessee, won't they? Get an offensive lineman at 11.
Yeah, they will definitely love that in Tennessee. Yeah, if they can pick up Hendon Hooker in round 2 or something, or because of his injury, I don't know if Hendon Hooker will last all through till round 2 or not, but.
I think someone will trade. Someone will trade. I think someone will trade into the back end of round 1 for him and get that 5th-year option, because he's going to miss a year anyway, probably.
Right.
So the 5th-year option becomes even more important then. So I think someone. It might even be the last pick of round 1, or it might be in the 20s. I don't know, but I think someone is going to trade up. I think either someone's going to trade up, or someone like Minnesota is going to take him essentially. But he's going to go in the bottom 3rd of round 1.
The bottom. Yeah, of round 1. Okay. Because I think if he didn't get hurt, he's probably in, higher than that as well, more than likely. Hendon Hooker.
I've heard that. Someone I spoke to who was legit. So I'm not going to mention his name, but he thought that Hooker would be up there if he hadn't got injured.
Right. All right, so we've kind of the 2 defender guys that I really wanted to talk about. First is Will Anderson, and you have already said that that's probably number 1 on Seahawks board if he would be there at the 5th pick. But that's probably a pretty good fall for Will Anderson to still be on the board at the 5th pick. But anyway, what is your take and on Will Anderson, and is he really worth a number 1 overall pick, I guess?
Well, he's quite a complicated assessment, Will Anderson, because he had obviously a great 2021 season, and the stats galore, like 30 odd tackles for a loss, 17 and a half sacks.
Yeah.
But anyone watch the tape, he's not screaming off the edge, beating offensive tackles, bending the arc, showing that great burst. He's what he's actually is a lot of stunts. Alabama are like Mr. Stunt, like Saban's Mr. Stunt. Like they love a stunt. And whenever I watch, you see like breakdown videos on YouTube, whenever I see anybody sort of praising a stunt, I always click off them straight away, because a stunt is basically just it's almost like a blitz. It's like a manufactured pressure. So there's a lot of stunts, a lot of backside chase downs, chase after the running back from behind, stuff like that. And you're watching him, you're thinking, I was kind of hoping to see a bit more speed rush and stuff like that. And then you study him a little bit more, and there's a false step in his get off. He is slow to engage the tackle. He is not flying off the snap. So you start to think, well, I can see why someone like Chris Sims is saying he's not the top edge rusher in the draft and that somebody else is, but that's a whole different story. But there are a lot of things to like with him. He's incredibly powerful. He can hold his point at 250 pounds. He does a great job holding the point, plays the run very well, can keep his frame clean, and then sort of read the run and then play the ball carrier. He is relentless in terms of chasing down players, and if you put him off the edge, he's not going to bend like Will McDonald will, but he will chase and he will hassle and he's going to give you 100% every single snap. And some teams are going to really like that. And if you want a high effort, powerful, aggressive player, then he's going to give you that. Is he special? No, he ain't Von Miller. He isn't a Bosa brother. He isn't Myles Garrett. But he's going to be a safe pick. He's going to be somebody who I think in 5 years' time, no one's going to say, why on earth did you take him? Whether people are going, wow, he's one of the top 5 pass rushers in the NFL or not, I'm dubious.
All right. I think that's a fair take on Will Anderson. What is your take on Jalen Carter? I know you've kind of mentioned a little bit of stuff earlier, but that would be probably most likely the second person defender that I would mention would be Jalen Carter.
Well, incredibly talented, fantastic talent, and somebody who, when he is at his best, if he don't want to be blocked, he ain't gonna be blocked. He's
if he wants it bad enough, he could be a top, on the board for the NFL. He could be a great player.
Yeah, agreed. Completely agree. And look, he just combines. It's funny, really, because he look. This is the best way I think to describe it. He looks technically brilliant, but I don't think the technique. I don't think he's been taught technique. I think he's just naturally kind of picked it up strangely, and that's pretty special in itself. His ability to. He is so quick, getting off the snap and then exploding it, up towards the blockers. And then once he's engaged, he's so quick to, he's got that speed to get into the block, but then the power to disengage, or his ability to just fake towards one gap and then sort of quickly shoot to another gap is unbelievable. His hands are good. He's powerful. Once he's wins initially, whether it's with leverage or just getting there to the gap before the blocker can get there, you ain't stopping him. He's an incredible player. I don't think he realizes how much he is risking an elite career in the NFL, potentially Hall of Fame career, and millions and millions and millions of dollars. The problem with him is he's had a tough upbringing. It's impacted, I think, his approach to how he's sort of viewing his career. I don't think he's conscious of, what he needs to do to be a pro. We've seen all of the reports, that people are putting out there now. I think they're only really scratching the surface. His practice habits are not good. He basically does what he wants. And George's approach to it was, well, if he turns up on a game day, we're kind of cool with it. We just want him there. And then what that means is, because he's not on it all the time with his lifting and his conditioning, that when it got to the LSU game in the SEC championship, they had a long drive to start the game and he looked gassed. And that's in the first series of the game. And then against Ohio State, it was embarrassing. He said it was embarrassing. He said he was embarrassed by his performance, and rightly so. And the problem is that you look at that and you think, that Ohio State game is the closest thing he will have had to an NFL game in his college career. And if he's going to look like that in the NFL, he's going to be rubbish, frankly. He needs to get his career as the most important thing in his life, and he needs to start acting like a pro. And he's going to have, like Todd McShay says, he doesn't take well to coaching, and that he was barking back at coaches. He ain't going to be able to do that in the NFL. His NFL coach is going to have to get on him. He's going to have to be in the gym every day. He's going to have to, work at this. He's going to have to completely change his life around, frankly, to work like a pro. And that worries me a little bit, because you can't guarantee that he's going to do that. I mean, what's going to happen? He's going to get drafted. You're going to guarantee him $30 million on draft day. And then, apart from a mini camp straight after the draft, he's going to be left to his own devices for 2 or 3 months before training camp. What happens in that period? Is he going to be working out? Is he going to be on his conditioning? Is he going to be doing whatever he wants? Because what you really want him is working out in the gym every single day.
Sometimes when you have that special talent carries you and you don't really have to work as hard as some of the other guys.
Well, I read this from a team source. They said they put it that they are worried about his approach to practice and working out and his conditioning, but they can't guarantee that he's actually going to come into the league and just carry on doing what he was doing at Georgia and still be brilliant anyway because he's that good. That's what the way that they put it, and that's true. He could be a pain in the backside for whoever drafts him, but on a Sunday or a Thursday or Monday, be brilliant.
Right.
And you can't rule that out, but you also can't rule out that he's going to need to play 25% of the snaps for the first 2 years of his career, maybe for the full length of his first contract. And you ain't drafting someone 5th overall for 25% rotational pass rusher because of his conditioning. And, certain teams, like Arizona's a good example. Arizona need to reset their culture. And they've got a rookie head coach and a rookie GM. How are you going to reset the culture by drafting Jalen Carter 3rd overall? And you really want your rookie head coach dealing with that and a GM that being his first pick, putting that on the coach? It just doesn't chime. And, people say, well, Seattle would be a good choice for him. Yeah, but Seattle's big on character. And, they spent all of last year saying what a great thing it was that the rookies came back in shape for training camp and that it was basically the catalyst for their great draft that everyone was on character. So there are certain teams that are not going to go anywhere near Jalen Carter. There are certain teams like the Steelers and the Eagles, I think, could be well up for taking that risk and are probably, well positioned to get the best out of Jalen Carter. But he's going to be a headache. And then on top of all of this, of course, there's the legal stuff. Teams are going to have to work out exactly what happened on that night, which led to the crash, and they'll be doing their investigations on that to find out as much information as they can. I think pretty much all of the teams in the top 10 have met with Jalen Carter, short of like the Panthers, who are going to take a quarterback, not Jalen Carter, and they want to hear his side of the story, and they were doing their own study on that. So there's like so many layers to this. It's hard to know. I mean, like, you wouldn't be surprised if he's a Hall of Famer. You wouldn't be surprised if he was out of the league in 2 years. And with that, because of that, I'm just going to let my stance, if I was a GM, would be I'm going to let somebody else deal with it. And if he ends up being world-class player, congratulations to them for taking that risk. But I'm not going to lose any sleep.
You can always possibly sign him later. You don't have to draft him.
Yeah, and look, it's just. I personally would just say good luck to whoever takes him. I hope he has a great career, but I'm not prepared to. I don't want that headache. I don't want a sleepless night in June wondering what he's doing when I hope that he's in the gym.
My question to you with this is Pete Carroll kind of has a reputation of helping out guys that have, a second chance, they need a second chance or turning their life around or whatever. Pete Carroll kind of has a reputation for doing that all the way back to his USC days. Is that not something you don't think Seattle will do?
I think it's misconstrued. I think what Pete Carroll likes to do is if there's like a lost soul or someone who's slightly different that wouldn't appeal to a certain team. So, Richard Sherman and Jim Harbaugh did not see eye to eye at Stanford, and neither did Doug Baldwin, both legendary players for Seattle, because Pete Carroll, could get the best out of them. But what Pete likes is, even if you've got these players like Marshawn Lynch, for example, who are quirky characters that most of the league can't handle, or a Frank Clark, who they drafted at the end of round 2, who had a domestic violence allegation hanging over him when they drafted him. All of these players have one thing in common. They're absolute dogs on the football field. When they get out on the football field or a practice field, all football, angry as hell. The term that they use in Seattle is pissed off for greatness. And that's what Pete likes. And that's competitors. So if you are prepared to bring it, and if you've got your hair on fire and you are 100% football and want to compete, Pete Carroll will give you that chance, even if you're a bit of a lost soul. What Pete Carroll doesn't want are guys who are going to pick and choose when they want to practice, who pick and choose when they want to turn it on. That's Jalen Carter. That's Jalen Carter. And that's the problem. People think, character concerns, Pete loves that. If Jalen Carter had a few issues, but practiced like crazy, was relentless on the football field, and absolutely football,
he would take it.
They would run to the podium. But the problem is that ain't what it is. It's
Right.
there's serious questions whether this guy even likes football, and that ain't a Pete guy.
Right. I got you. I just wanted to bring it up because I've had other people bring it up to me that they thought Pete, that's the kind of guy that Pete Carroll would like. So since you were going to be on with us, I thought you're the perfect guy, to ask about it.
And people say to me all the time, like, you're going to look so stupid if they draft him, and that's absolutely true. If they do take him at number 5, it's going to make me look rather ridiculous. But I will own that, and I will own that, and I will learn from it. I'm just giving you, and as I've given everybody, my thought on this, and based on what I know about Jalen Carter, I probably know more about Jalen Carter than most people. I've been able to sort of source some of the information. Incredibly talented player, as I mentioned. And I hope he has a great career with the Philadelphia Eagles.
All right. So there is another Georgia defender that I want to talk about. And he did not play much at all this year, maybe not at all. I can't remember if he played the first game and then didn't play. But that is Nolan Smith. And, is there a chance, even though he didn't play, does he have a chance of being a top 10 pick, you think? Nolan Smith?
Look, people are saying that. I'm very skeptical.
I've heard it in the last couple of weeks. And with you being on, I just wanted to ask you about it.
Well, I'm going to speak to somebody this week who might be able to give me an idea as to whether that's likely or not. My personal take is no, because he, to me, is a tweener. Like it's hard to sort of watch him and think that's the position. Short, the sort of the way that he fits for me is probably as an edge rusher for the Patriots. Like, they love these kind of like smaller guys who are quicker, like Josh Uche. There's the other guy who I can't remember what his name is now. There's a few years ago, long blonde hair. It looks a bit like Clay Matthews. I can't remember his name. But they take these sort of smaller edge rushers, and I could see, maybe the Patriots at 14 would be a great spot for him. But for everybody else, he's about two. He played, like, I know he weighed about 238. He played at Georgia, I think, at about 230. Like, he looks tiny on the field, and like, if that's his playing weight, you can't play the edge at that. But then he didn't play orthodox linebacker in college either. So if you're transferring him to sort of an orthodox linebacker role, he's got the attitude, he's got the dog in him, he's got the character to do it, but he didn't do it. So you're making a major projection there. And he's a funny player to watch, because even though he ran a 4.39 or whatever it was, and he is smaller, he doesn't actually fly off the edge and bend the arc as well as you'd think. Like, he's actually better. This is going to sound really weird, playing the run. Like, he actually has got heavy hands for his size, and he can get into tackles and jolt them back. And I thought, wow, I was really impressed with the way that he played the run at his size. I actually think the bigger concern is, like, if you draft him to be a pure pass rusher, I don't know if he's going to come flying off the edge. He doesn't have the length. He doesn't really have much of a counter. So I'd have a little bit of skepticism there. And that's why I think if he was a great pass rusher who could fly off the edge and could do all of that, I think he possibly would have a chance, a bit like Vic Beasley did, to go in the top 10. But the fact he's been hurt, there's going to be some durability concerns because of the size as well, and the fact that he has missed some time, and the fact that I think he's a bit of a tweener. I've got him graded in round 2 because I don't know where to play him. But the physical profile is, I concede he's good enough that he could go a lot earlier.
I've seen some recent mock drafts, and I have seen him as high as number 8.
Yeah,
and I just thought I would mention him because about a month ago, most of the people that I've seen had him right in that early second round, range, what you were just talking about. But I heard he had some really good workouts and is impressing some people. So I don't know if any of that's true or not. And absolutely. I just wanted to.
He's a great guy as well. You can't, when you listen to him, you kind of want him on your team because he's such a great speaker, very passionate about the game. You're going to get everything from him. He's almost like the opposite of Jalen Carter in that regard. He is, it's just, where does he play? That's the question that I kind of keep asking myself. And I'm sure there'll be some GMs and scouts who go, well, what are you talking about? He can play here. And that's their opinion. I'm sure there are other GMs and scouts who go, no, I don't know really fits, quite frankly. So there's going to be mixed opinions on him, I bet. But it only takes one team to put him in the top 10.
Right. All right. So I really have two more questions, and then we'll kind of wrap this up. So, is there any other players that I didn't mention that you want to, that would be in that top and that'd be considered, I guess, and that I didn't mention that you want to talk about?
Well, look, Tyree Wilson's probably going to go somewhat early. He could even go number 2 if you listen to some people. He's 271, incredible length and size. People speaking very highly. Chris Sims thinks he's the best pass rusher in the draft and says it's a no-brainer. I'm skeptical. I mean, I think he's a great power bull rusher, but even then, when he gets into tackles and bull rushes and pushes them back, a lot of those blocks stall. He has this great pressure percentage according to Pro Football Focus. I do wonder a little bit how sometimes if they count those bull rushes that stall as a successful pressure, and that maybe tots his numbers up a little bit. But when I'm looking at that, I'm thinking he's been blocked. He's pushed the tackle back, but not enough to necessarily impact the quarterback to warranting that to be called a pressure. He doesn't really have a speed rush. I do think he goes through the motions on some of his snaps and doesn't really, play with his hair on fire. The size is tantalizing, and maybe with some good coaching, you could become a very, very good player. But I'm just dubious myself that he's going to go as high as some people are thinking. So Tyree Wilson's one of those. I think Devon Witherspoon is a very interesting player, cornerback. He's getting a lot of traction at the minute. He's probably the toughest player in the draft. Absolutely hammers people. Come and play run support brilliantly. The biggest hitter in the draft by an absolute mile. But he's 180 pounds and he's 5'11". So it's, can he keep doing that in the NFL? It's one thing to go and hammer people in the Big Ten. Is he going to be able to do that in the NFC? So he's a challenging sort of assessment in that because he's not a ball hawk, but he is incredibly physical. But there are teams in that top 10. Dan Campbell once famously said he wants people who are going to eat people's kneecaps, and Devon Witherspoon will eat your kneecaps. So there's a chance that he will go very early as well.
Right. All right. So at number 5, you've kind of said Will Anderson's a possibility. You think maybe Anthony Richardson is a possibility. And give us some other names if who might be there and who you think Seattle might pick.
Well, some people think it's going to be they're going to force a defensive pick, and if that's the case, then I would say Will Anderson, Tyree Wilson. I don't think Jalen Carter, but probably those two are the pass rushers that you're looking at. If they're both gone and they really were forcing a defensive pick, I don't think it's very likely, but Devon Witherspoon could be an option there. I'm struggling to think of any other defensive player who would be worth the number 5 pick in that regard. And then with the quarterbacks, Seahawks fans are kind of split on whether they want him to go quarterback or not. But the thing is that Stroud, Richardson, and Levis have all got the physical qualities that John Schneider has typically looked for. Big hands, big arm, can throw it downfield. You look at the quarterbacks he's gone for in the past. Russell Wilson, he traded for Charlie Whitehurst. He reportedly loved Josh Allen and wanted to trade Russell Wilson to get him in 2018. He reportedly was going to draft Patrick Mahomes if he was there in the late first, which a lot of people expected at the time. He likes these kind of players. So I think the Seahawks are going to be intrigued by those 3 quarterbacks. I think Will Anderson or the 3 quarterbacks is what I would put my money on if I was going to do anything like that. But I have to admit that there are at least some people out there who think they're going to go defense, whatever it takes, and that could bring a Tyree Wilson or somebody like that into the mix as well. But I think Will Anderson or a quarterback would be my preference.
All right. So and the quarterbacks would be Stroud, Levis, or Richardson, right? Yeah. I know that Pete Carroll was at the. Did he go to Anthony Richardson's too?
Yes. Yeah, and he did. And there was a report that John Schneider spent considerable time talking to Richardson's agent after that, and Carroll had a meeting with Billy Napier, the head coach. So there's been a bit of a glint in Carroll's eye when he's talked about Richardson. I mean, you can look at it either way. You could say, well, that's either a sign of genuine interest, and I think it is. people wanted to say it was a smokescreen. That what they really want is people to trade up, and 4 quarterbacks off the board, and Will Anderson's there at 5. That might have been a plan,
Right.
but I just think it's Schneider. You come back to John Schneider for me. If he didn't like these quarterbacks, I don't know which quarterbacks he's going to like, because they kind of fit him down to a T, really. So I think for example, he would love Will Levis if he's there. Whether Pete Carroll wants to do that or not, I don't know. I mean, look, Carroll was in charge for a long time. We don't know who's in charge now, but there was a bit of a change before the Russell Wilson trade, which, in my opinion, John Schneider wanted to do the year before. And if Schneider's in charge of the draft, it makes it more likely a quarterback will be taken. If Carroll is still in control, I'd say it's less likely. We're going to find out in 2 weeks who really is in
Right.
charge of the Seahawks.
Yeah. Yeah, we're not too far away now. It's the 27th, the first round is, so we are less than 2 weeks away, 11 days, and we'll find out on the NFL draft. So I appreciate you being on with us tonight. I'm sorry that John had to run.
My fault for being late.
Yeah, I'm sorry John had to run, but I appreciate you being on with us, Rob. It's been great. And we'd love to have you on again sometime.
Anytime. Appreciate the invite. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks, Rob. All right, guys. I appreciate Rob being on with us. And sorry John had to run. He, like I said, we was all a little late trying to get this done. We're doing this show later than we normally do. So John had to run, so I just wanted to kind of clear that up. We are College SportsCast. We are on Tuesday, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. and Sunday, normally 3 p.m. Central. And we are on WSBN TV channel 30. And I want to get that in. Also talk about our prize picks. You can go to prizepicks.com to play fantasy daily sports. And when you do that, for your initial deposit, punch in CS Cast, and that will help us out as well as give you double your money up to $100. So if you have a deposit of $50, you'll get $100 to play with. If you deposit $100, you'll get $200 to play with. And there's over 30 sports to choose from each and every day, $5 minimum. And again, double your money at prizepicks.com by using our promo code CSCast. Appreciate that from you guys. And I want to say a big, huge thanks for Rob Staton coming on with us. Like I said, we're all kind of running late, but he is great, has a lot of good inside info. I'm very glad and happy that he came on with us. We do not know each other. I just contacted him through Twitter, and he done this for us. So a big, huge thanks to him for coming on College SportsCast here with us and doing that. He has a lot of great info and insider info and stuff that I hope you guys enjoyed. And it's been a fun show. And the NFL draft is set for next Thursday. The first round is the 27th. The second and third round is the 28th of April. And the remaining 3 through 7 or 4 through 7 rounds are the 29th of April. So it's coming up soon. And we'll have another NFL insider on with us. He'll be from Green Bay this coming week. And then next Tuesday, right before the draft, we will have a third edition of our own mock draft with the mock draft guy. And then hopefully we will be on Thursday night, April 27th, and we will kind of be doing a live show and doing some live updates on the NFL draft while the first round is going on. So we look forward to bringing you some NFL draft coverage, including today with Rob Staton. keep wanting to say Staton, and he said his name was. And we appreciate him being on with us. And we appreciate you guys following College SportsCast. And we will see you guys on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. Catch us here, catch us on YouTube, Facebook Live. Go to our link tree, College SportsCast, and you can find us and everything that we do on our link tree page. Get that up real quick. You can go to our link tree page. There's our link tree page for you guys. We have a TikTok. You can help us and follow us on anything. There's about 10 or 12 different things there if you go to that link tree page, and we appreciate it. Got somebody looks like in my chat. So, oh, it's Hammonds. Hammonds was with me today. He says I look like a wild man. That's because I've been crazy busy the last few days, and I appreciate everybody being with us. And we will close this out. Y'all have a good night. We will see you Tuesday night.